I'm Bruce Ray Riggs, and I'm going to point out a couple of things how this country's been deceived, and it's pretty hard to find this anywhere online. Even our attorneys aren't schooled this in their education system. It wasn't even really known until 1967, and they never changed the way the system was taught once they found out. Basically, in 1866, at the end of the Civil War, as we go along, this may be paused with a document next to me to prove what I'm saying as I go along, because this is a factual video. This has nothing to do with opinion. In 1866, the United States government, asked for a different form of government because of the Confederate rebellious states. They was afraid they was going to succeed again in the future. 1868, Black's Law Dictionary even makes clear the 14th Amendment created, or at least recognized for the first time, a citizen of the United States as distinct of that of the state. 1870, the District of Columbia declared itself a corporation of the District of Columbia, doing business as the United States and successors of all corporations in the United States. And the 14th Amendment, creating us as corporations, underneath this, gave them full jurisdiction over us as corporations, not as human beings. In other words, the District of Columbia declared itself doing business as the United States. Before that, you were a citizen of the state, according to the Constitution, Article 4, Section 2, Clause 1. This amendment that was never legally ratified, Congressional Record, June 13th, 1967, 99 years later, proved it to be never ratified for many reasons. It was done at gunpoint. It was never presented to President Andrew Johnson to sign or veto on the law. Only had one vote win. I mean, just numerous reasons. All these documents on this website you can basically view as we go. It's supposed to be, it was viewed and deemed a political choice. If the American people ever rebelled against this amendment, the Constitution must strike it with nullity. Even if they went on to say this amendment was properly ratified, the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution would still strike it with nullity, because it supersedes the Constitution by creating a different citizenship and a different form of government than what our Founding Fathers' intent. As you can see, every form of government that's in our country right now that's above and beyond the basic 16 functions of the federal government is from the jurisdiction of this amendment. In 1913, when 51% of the people was supposed to be considered to be a part of this private citizenship, this private corporate amendment, remember, a corporation is a person within the 14th Amendment, then that moved 100% of us into this, and therefore there's where the Federal Reserve Act came into play, to start printing private currency for a public trust. And by the way, the 14th Amendment makes a citizen of the United States responsible for the national debt 77 years before the national debt even began. It created the citizenship 3 years before this corporation was even set up to govern the citizenship and the jurisdictions thereof. Powers not delegated to Congress or states retained by the people. Ask yourself, where was our government ever given jurisdiction over our privately owned firearms? You can't see where in the Constitution they were. But the municipal corporation of the District of Columbia, the head of all corporations in the United States, you being a corporation, can put a corporation over you, the municipal corporation of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the municipal corporation of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, municipal corporation of whatever, the Federal Reserve Bank. They can make statutes, which are municipal corporate ordinances or policies, and that's how they're enforced, the statutes. And because you're under that jurisdiction, you have to go by them. Can a larger corporation tell a smaller corporation that's under it what to do? Sure they can. Can the main office make a policy, for instance, telling their employees they must have their shirt tucked in while they're working? Sure they can. Statute is basically a policy, a municipal corporate ordinance. They're taking jurisdiction through the citizenship of an amendment that was never ratified. If you don't like your gun control, well, guess what? It all comes from the jurisdiction of an amendment that was never ratified. Congressional Record, June 13th, 1967, page 15641 to 15646, memorialized on the Senate floor. All these documents are on this website. Like I said, we're proving everything as we go. I mean, there's so many ways we've been deceived through the years. For instance, in 1931, our government declared a state of emergency and declared bankruptcy through the Emergency War Powers Act. We've been in a state of emergency since 1931. The Constitution has basically been suspended since then. And, I mean, they just don't tell us. We live under the color of law, thinking we've had all these rights, but slowly they're fading away and we don't understand how. Well, guess what? They haven't really existed since 1931. It's time to take them back, don't you think? The Constitutional Republic of the United States of America technically hasn't even existed since 1871. It's been like an empty house, like that no one lives in. We've all been a different citizenship. In fact, the states even had to ask for permission for representation in this form of government because they were set up by the Founding Fathers to be represented in the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. And when the 14th Amendment was created, they didn't have jurisdiction to be represented there. They had to ask for permission to be represented there because they were still in the Republic. All these documents are here for you to read. I mean, we've been so deceived. They should have taught you this in school. I mean, the national debt is based on an amendment that was never ratified. Ain't that something? The IRS is just a branch of the private Federal Reserve Bank. Another corporation they put over a corporation. That's how they take jurisdiction. You guys complain about all these fruits of the poison tree. This 14th Amendment is the poison tree, such as taxes. That all comes from this jurisdiction. Gun laws, jurisdiction, ATF, all of them jurisdictions come from this 14th Amendment. Everything above and beyond the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America and the basic form of government that we're supposed to have compared to where we are now comes from the jurisdiction of this amendment. You'll beat yourself to death trying to fight each and every one of these little poison fruits independently. If you just get rid of this 14th Amendment and the jurisdiction thereof, they're gone. It would take all of the rest of it with it. And we're back to what our Founding Fathers created. The government, so many people claim they want, and they just don't know how to get there. We're here, and we think we should be over here. People claim they got a right to own guns. Well, guess what? That's another deception. Because as a citizen of the United States, you're not really a citizen of the Constitution the Founding Fathers created. You're a citizen of this different form of government. See, they've deceived us this whole time. It's under color of law. That's why they come back to you as privileges. They start governing back your rights to you as privileges. And you don't understand how when you think they're an inherent right. It's simple. You have to be that citizen to declare that right. If you're the citizen that's in the Constitution, then yes, you would have them rights. If I'm a citizen of Canada, I imagine I would have the rights and privileges and whatever that citizenship would allow, and the restrictions as well. Well, I mean, how can you claim to the rights of the perfect document if you're not even a citizen thereof? Look at Article 4, Section 2, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution. The citizens of every state shall be entitled to the same privileges and immunities as the citizens of the several states. You call yourself a Florida resident? Well, when's the last time you've heard of a Florida citizen? A citizen of Florida state. That's a constitutional citizen. Our states gave up their sovereignty to the federal government. They gave up that citizenship. That's the amendment. People don't even really understand that. Powers not delegated to states, retained by the people. That's because it was a state citizenship of the founding, what the Founding Fathers created. And not this mess we got today. That's why we're so far out of whack. I mean, there's only one constitutional law enforcement officer in this country. That is a sheriff. He's the only one named in the Constitution. In fact, in the 1920s and 30s, whenever the FBI first came out, they were called G-men. They couldn't even carry guns. People think these people are supreme. They need to study their history. The sheriff is the only constitutional law enforcement officer. Our Founding Fathers wanted us to be able to vote him out just the way they did anybody else. Voter accountability. If you did your job wrong, if you were cruel, if you did this and that wrong, then when it came time for a re-election, when we knew what to do. You tell me any of these other agencies that have 3 letters stuck on the back of their jacket and half of them we don't even understand what they mean, they have no voter accountability. None. They don't know what the Founding Fathers' intent was. You see what I mean? Another deception. Your gun rights aren't just inherent in the Second Amendment alone. They're inherent in the Ninth Amendment as well. Just like I pointed out before, powers not delegated to Congress or states retained by the people. The Amendment. Where were they ever given jurisdiction over firearms? They never were. They've done it through interstate commerce, firearms going across states' borders, and they've done it through the citizenship of an amendment that was never ratified. That's how they take the jurisdiction. So if there was guns made in the state that you live in, they would have absolutely no jurisdiction whatsoever if you were a citizen of constitutional republic of the United States of America. In other words, a citizen of your state. The citizenship is still alive, and it does exist because Native Americans born on sovereign land, they have a right to go back and forth between the two citizenships. They make a choice at will. When they're called a sovereign American, that has nothing to do with their racial heritage. It has to do with they were a citizen of Article 4, Section 2, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution. They're a sovereign American because they're a constitutional citizen. Please don't mistake the two. Then they can go back and be the citizen we are, and they got to pay income tax and so forth again. So when you complain that these people are not being, that is unfair, that they don't have to pay their fair share of income tax because they're born on Native American soil, well, guess what? All they are is they're the citizen our founding fathers wanted us to be. That's all they are. Don't complain about it. Become just like them. Learn about it. Because the night before the 14th Amendment went into effect, even though it was completely illegal and unconstitutional, an act of high treason, done at gunpoint, 11 states was deprived the right to vote. 2 Union, and you see that was Ohio and New Jersey, and 9 Confederate, ex-Confederate states, just because they were against it. I mean, it's insane. Read the congressional record we put up. It's insane to see how your constitutional rights was stolen from you by these bankers that got up in our system. And then once they got 51% of the people a part of this system, they were right there with that Federal Reserve Act to step in. They engineered the first depression and the crash of the economy. They caused our government to declare bankruptcy. That's how come they got our gold in New York City under their building. And it's supposed to belong to us. They've stolen all of that from us. The national debt, all of it is based on an amendment that was never ratified. It's a hoax. There's a way of making us in debt for every dollar we put in circulation. There's a debt attached to it. They're charging us money for printing money off interest off printing money off our own net worth. And the citizenship of the 14th Amendment, you ever hear them say, you owe $35,000 or whatever the heck to the national debt? Well, guess what? That's all printed off your homes and everything you're worth under that citizenship of that amendment that was never ratified. Why do you think the foreigners are eating up that debt so bad? Because they want to own us. Even if your house is paid for, you still owe that money because of your citizenship. Think about it. These people, they really deceived us. We need to wake up. We really, really do. You can't say, I've heard these arguments, people say that, well, they may not allow us to go back to the citizenship. What do you mean they won't allow us? The only thing that gives the citizenship of the United States any presumptive validity whatsoever is the fact is it's a political choice. That's it. Because you have a right to choose back and forth, as you've seen on the document. You can leave this jurisdiction at will. So therefore, it's a political choice. Yes, as a truly free people, you can give your rights away. They can't force you to give them away, but you can give them away as a truly free people. That's why the Supreme Court, they said it's political. I mean, read the congressional record. Yes, if the American people ever rebelled against it, the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, Article 6, Section 2, must strike it with nullity. It is a political choice. The only thing is, they don't tell you about the choice. They keep it a secret from you. Now these banks, these dirty bankers, they got all into our system. They collect interest every week on off our national debt. They had to come up with an IRS branch, which is illegal and unconstitutional. And yeah, there's questions about the 16th Amendment being ratified, and I don't believe it was, but that doesn't even matter. It don't even matter. All that comes from a jurisdiction of an amendment that was never ratified. Why argue like a dog chasing its tail if it wasn't ratified? The 16th wasn't ratified. Even if the 14th was ratified, it's still unconstitutional. Throw the whole thing out. Get it out of your face. Go back to living as a truly free people again. Don't let them people die in vain in 1776 that fought for this. It is really worth fighting for again if we have to. It is insane what they've done to what is supposed to be a truly free people. Do you feel truly free? Was it not Benjamin Franklin that said when the government fears the people, you have liberty. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny? People are too afraid to even speak out or do anything anymore or stand up for what is supposed to be theirs? Well, liberty's only there for men who choose to fight for it. If you don't want to stand up for it, I guess you don't deserve it then. Maybe you should take the time to read these documents I put up here and decide what you want to do. This is our country. Why what's left of it, why we still got a chance to say something about it or do something about it, it is still our country. It's time we need to wake up. I mean, what does Stalin say? If you give me one generation and I'll change the world, well, guess what? They've had since 1868. That's a long time. They've had 140 years. They've had a lot of generations to deceive us. I mean, think about it. That's why I'm putting up the facts as I talk, because it's basically non-synonymous of everything you grew up as learning, as our function of government, our system is. You have to relearn what, I mean, we're that deceived. I was too. It blew my mind when I got to studying all this. This is why I didn't go to law school. How could I be a part of a system that ain't real? I mean, in 1967, when they learned the 14th Amendment was never legally ratified, the congressional record even says so, our colleges that teach our attorneys, our future attorneys, they didn't stop teaching them that the 14th Amendment wasn't legally ratified. No, they kept on teaching them that it was ratified. They're schooled to practice law within this 14th Amendment corporate body politic as if it was legally ratified. And 90% of the statutes that they call laws that they shove down our throat come from this jurisdiction of this amendment. They make their living off this. They have no, I mean, they were bloated. They're not even schooled that it was not even ratified. They would have to read this congressional record and learn for themselves, and then I'd have to relearn. Remember, Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1 is where the court's jurisdiction would be if you're a citizen of the state. That is in law and equity. You're in equity at law because the corporation's a person within a 14th Amendment. You're under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4, legislative, territorial, tribunal, admiralty, maritime jurisdiction, basically. You're not even under the form of government you're supposed to be under, but you complain about your rights being violated. Well, here's how they're being violated. You would have to be living the citizenship you're supposed to have, according to the Constitution. Then you would have a complaint if your rights were being violated. If you're not even a citizen of that document, what have you got to complain about? Well, that's basically all I got to say. But I hope you enjoy this and give us our feedback. Thank you very much.